Hello, my name is Liam. Welcome back to Puca Films. Today we're going to go through the Walking Dead characters and we're going to predict who's going to live, who's going to die in the upcoming season 9. Just a few things. First of all, there has been a few pictures that have been released that kind of give us a little clue at where characters might be going. I'm not going to reference that too much. Obviously, this is based off the comics. I'm mainly going off volumes, A New Beginning, Whispers into Screams, and Life and Death. So there will be a few spoilers, but I'm not going to go really into detail with it. But I'm just going to go through, I'm going to give my thoughts on some of the characters, whether they're going to live or going to die, basically, and if they are, either or, what I think is happening for the character. So without further ado, let's get going. First of all, Rick, he's good. I don't really have much to say about Rick. He's in a very different situation from what he was in the comics. In the comics, he'd broken his leg and he has one hand. He's a very different man. So I think when we reach the Whisperer War and when we reach our conflict with Alpha, he's definitely going to have a lot more to do in the war and be more of a soldier instead of a general, which he is in the comics. Daryl, he's also good this season. Daryl's not dying, not until the end of the show. If they were going to kill him, Negan would have killed him. Beyond that point, I think the main two here are absolutely fine forever, basically. Michonne, I also believe is safe. Given that she's just appeared in Black Panther and the Avengers, I can see potentially down the line them killing her off, perhaps maybe giving her Rick's last love interest's death, which was recent in the comics. I won't spoil it, but perhaps doing some sort of remix of that. I know that was similar to Carl, but they could always work that in somehow. As Michonne doesn't always get that much to do in the show. I don't imagine she's really done anything to personally to me of note since about season 5, and I wish they did more with her, but whatever. Maggie, ooh. So we're going to put Maggie at a question mark because even though she's just signed on for the show, she does have a pilot for another TV series on NBC and has got quite angry at the producers. Well, not angry, but just wants fair pay, basically, the same as Rick and Daryl. But she didn't have it. Lauren Cohan didn't have that pay grade, even though she has third billing on the opening credits, but we'll have to wait and see what her role is. At the end of season 8 did kind of make her seem like she was going to potentially be a villain, but I don't imagine. I think it's going to be a B plot. This isn't leading to some big civil war. The Whisperers are still happening, and I honestly think when Angela Kang takes over from Scott Gimple, she might just ignore that altogether, because to skip at least 2 years of time forward and then have Maggie still be kind of spurring this plot with Jesus and Daryl, which makes no sense. To keep it secret for like 2 years, it just doesn't make sense, and it feels like it's waiting for the plot to happen and waiting for the viewers to start watching again, which I'm not about. So I'm going to say she's okay for now. If the pilot ends up taking off, well, she may be a casualty. I don't imagine she's going to be killed by Rick or by someone on Rick's side. I don't think the Civil War is a major thing. I think there will be a skirmish in how the Hilltop and Alexandria choose to deal with the Whisperers, but I think they'll be alright. Carol, I think, is okay. I think she's following Michonne's storyline from the comics from now on, and I imagine the next time we see her, she'll be at the ocean side as a pirate, basically, and she'll be coming in and out, potentially being missing for a bunch of the season until they come and get her back. She might have a solo episode on the high seas, showing her adventures, which is kind of that Michonne spin-off adaptation, potentially. Tara. I think Tara is dead. I do not think she has any more life left in the show. She's not a particularly popular character with the community. She's not a particularly popular character with the LGBT community either. I think two of the main reasons she stayed is because of the whole bury your gay tropes, in which gay characters are killed more in TV than any other characters, and I think they've been scared to kill her off for a long time. I also think because she's Scott Gimple's original creation, he's kept her around as long as he's been showrunner. But now Angela Kang is in charge. I don't think she'll stay around, and I imagine she might be one of the Spike victims. Rosita, I'm going to put at a maybe. I have no idea what they're going to do with Rosita. She is basically an original character at this point. She shares nothing in common with her original counterpart, and I think she's a much better character. She was a bit annoying in season 7, but I think she's a much better character now. I'd like to see where she goes, and I'd like to see her take a different role from what she already has, and perhaps as one of our point of views on the front line of the battle. Eugene, even though I wanted him to die so badly, he is such a different character from that of the comics, but it seems like they're giving him the redemption he doesn't deserve, and Eugene is going to pretty much follow his comic book storyline, I imagine, probably having a little bit of a quieter season this season, perhaps just dealing with his actions and what side he's on. He might speak with Negan, he might find his radio, so who knows. Gabriel, if Gabriel is blind, then I'm going to say dead. I imagine he's going to be somewhat of a mentor figure to Rick and to Negan, especially if he's blind, because the whole wise blind guy trope. I feel like he will impart some wisdom onto the other characters, be relatively optimistic, give some wisdom to Rick, and then he will be one of the Spike victims, as it makes the most sense to me. Unless he's not blind and he's recovered, in which case he may have a completely different role. But I think Gabriel's hero's journey has finished, and it will definitely end with him sacrificing himself and imparting some knowledge onto someone else. Ezekiel, same as comics. I think Ezekiel is toast. I think it opens up a lot of other storylines and opens up a lot of wounds in other characters, and I just think it's the right way to go. Dwight, if he even comes back, which he will, I'm going to put him as a maybe. Everyone thought that Daryl would replace Dwight, and then it seemed like it wasn't, so maybe Dwight was going to follow the comics and lead the Saviors, but nope, neither. He's something of a lone wolf now, and I imagine he will come back into the fray, perhaps if Sherry, who I'm going to mention in a minute, will show up again, potentially as a member of the Whisperers, can bring that personal connection to him and bring Dwight back into the story, perhaps befriending Daryl or making amends for his sins. Aaron and Jesus, both fine. I imagine they are potentially moving towards a romantic relationship. I don't know. I know the actor for Jesus said that wasn't what he wanted to happen, and he said that was a cheap move to have the two major gay characters put together. But it's following the comics, and to me it makes sense to have two major characters get put together instead of having them have two side character relationships, which don't really make sense to me. Gregory, I am surprised he's made it this far. I'm surprised they haven't killed him off earlier than the comics, but they haven't, and he is still around, and I imagine his storyline has something to do with perhaps the skirmish at the hilltop and Alexandria with Maggie and Rick. He might try and manipulate that situation. I think he's going to try and poison them, and I think he will get killed, perhaps being hung like the comics, or perhaps he will adapt Brandon Rose's part. If you know that part from the comics, I imagine that would be a nice part for him to get a really nice, satisfying death. Enid is safe now. Carl is dead. She's probably going to take that part, and we'll have a male counterpoint to Lydia. Will have a male version of the Whisperer boy, and I'm excited to see what Enid could do without Carl having Enid being relegated to being the love interest. I'd like to see what she can actually do. Jadis, or Anne as she's now called, I literally have no idea, so I'm moving on. I could talk for 20 minutes about what her character is going to do, but I'm surprised she's still here. I'm surprised she's alive, and I'm very confused from where they're taking her character, but she could basically go anywhere, so I'm going to leave it alone. Alden is comic book Dante, so I'm leaving him there. Sadiq, leaving him there. Negan, perhaps is a definite survive, but perhaps will escape from his cell at the end of the season. I don't imagine he'll spend more than a season in a cell, so they might move his escape up a little bit earlier. Cindy is fine. Scott, I am surprised is still alive, and I think he will get Gabriel's comic book death if they do that in season 9 or perhaps in season 10. Irat is Tara's part from the comic, so she's okay. Georgie, while there's theories that she is Pamela from the Commonwealth, I don't see that. I can see her turning up once and potentially surviving, but I don't think she has that important a part to play, and I wouldn't be surprised if she just didn't turn up again. Henry as being pretty much billed as a replacement Carl storyline, but I think Angela Kang is going to ignore all that setup, and I think he is toast. Kids don't do very well on the show. They don't last very long. They're not particularly entertaining characters. And I don't think anyone's going to be mad if Henry dies. He causes more problems than he fixes, and I think he'll be one of the Spike victims, and I think that will affect a bunch of other characters. Laura, we still need someone at the Saviors, so yes. Jerry, I believe Jerry will take over as king when Ezekiel dies, if Ezekiel dies. Diane, yes, just because we need someone. Nabila, yes, potentially no, actually. So I'm gonna. We don't really need her. We don't really need Diane either, but I think she's a more memorable face and someone that Jerry can rely on to kind of get counsel if Ezekiel dies and Jerry is left as king, and I think that is definitely the storyline he's going to pick up. Cal, I think, is taking the part of Marco, or Ken, I always confuse them, the one who discovers the Whisperers, since Ken and Marco are not around, and both of them are still alive, so I think that will get played up more. I've forgotten this guy's name. Because I've said Ken and Marco, I've forgotten what I'm trying to say. This guy, Eduardo, he's safe. Laura, nope. Spike victim. Mark, yep. Gracie, yep. Barbara and Bob Miller, nope. If you even know who these guys are. And then I'm going to put a big question mark over Heath and a big question mark over Sherry. I think they're both poised to return. I think they both will return this season. I think they'll return as the Whisperers. I think having the Whisperers be part of the have emotional connections to the group ups the ante a little, makes them more complex villains, and I think that Heath and Sherry could be great ways to justify how the Spike victims managed to get captured with perhaps a hysteria and an inside man inside Alexandria or the Hilltop to kind of really drive home that fear that the Whisperers cause. Talking of fear, Morgan, I have no idea. I think he'll be back on the show eventually, but I don't know when, and I don't think it's this season. I think, if anything, they're going to adapt his story into the Commonwealth with the Fear the Walking Dead characters, but it's too early in the season to tell, and I don't know, and I don't imagine that they're going to quite become the Whisperers just yet. Frankie and Tanya, I believe that's their names. I think they're both okay for a while. DJ, dead, just a Spike victim. I'm going to put Beatrice as a Spike victim. I'm going to put Rachel, the girl, as okay. She'll appear on the boats with Carol if we get that episode where Rick's going to go and find her working at the Oceanside. Kathy is okay. And an honourable mention is John, who actually got shot in the head last season. No, he's not called John. That's my later point. He's called Gary. He got shot in the head in the background, despite being a major character. I would say, despite being quite a noticeable character, he gets shot in the background. He's one of Simon's men who gets shot in just before the season finale of season 8. And I find it weird that he was killed, almost like it was a mistake. And I feel like they could easily bring him back. This is a strange theory because no one really comes back in The Walking Dead unless they're a walker. But there's a character called John who has he's blind in one eye, clearly from some sort of injury. And I say if they want to basically retcon Gary's fate, they can have him have a little eye, blind in one eye, have a scar over it, and say that he was shot in the eye. I mean, people do survive headshots all the time, contrary to what to what TV and games and films make us believe. But I think he could totally make it back into the show if they wanted to give it the Saviors another face, because currently everyone memorable at the Saviors is a woman. So maybe bringing John, who is quite a notable comic book character, into the show via Gary, I think that might be a good thing. So I'm going to put that as a yes, even though he's technically already dead. And the only one that's not on this list is Judith, but obviously she's alive. I'm interested to see how the series is going to work out. I'm loving the new looks and the screenshots that I've seen. It looks like Angela Kang's really going to bring some changes to the season, and it looks like the Whisperers might really be some good villains, even though we haven't seen any proof that they're coming around yet. I definitely think they're going to be the villains. I definitely think Maggie and the Hilltop is going to be something of a B-plot. As for main character deaths, we actually have quite a few that are potentially main character deaths. There's quite a lot of new characters that can move up through the ranks. So Tara and Gabriel, I can definitely see dying. Ezekiel, yes. Gregory, yes. And then the only other one is Maggie, who potentially could go or could stay. Who knows? Tell me your predictions below. Tell me if I've missed anyone. I've done all the minor characters, but I've bound to have missed someone. There's just so many characters these days. But if you let me know, and leave them down in the comments. We'll have a conversation about it, and I will see you in the next video.